The screams in the jungle. The jungle was hot, thick, and full of strange sounds. Jake, a human explorer from Earth, moved slowly through the tall grass. His boots sank into the soft ground. The sky above was covered by giant alien trees and strange, glowing bugs flew through the air like tiny stars. Jake had come to this wild planet to collect rare plants for medicine. He had no plan to meet anyone. This place was supposed to be empty, at least that's what the map said. Then he heard it, a scream, high-pitched, full of pain. Not an animal sound. A voice. A girl's voice. Jake froze. He held his breath and looked round. The jungle was silent now. No birds, no insects, even the wind had stopped. It was too quiet. Then, another scream. This one was louder, filled with terror, and it was close. Jake pulled his blaster from his side and began running. He pushed through thick leaves and jumped over strange roots. His heart was racing. Hang on, he whispered to himself. The trees opened up into a small clearing. Smoke rose into the sky. Jake dropped low behind a log. What he saw made his blood run cold. A group of tribal aliens stood in a circle. Their skin was painted with red and black symbols. They danced and chanted around a large fire. In the middle of the fire pit was a wooden frame, and tied to it was a girl, an alien girl. Her skin was pale blue. Her long white hair was tangled and dirty. She was tied up tightly with rough ropes. Flames licked at her legs. She screamed again as the fire burned closer. Jake's eyes went wide. "They're cooking her alive," he said under his breath. The tribal aliens didn't notice him. They were too busy with their ritual. They jumped, shouted, and threw strange powders into the flames. Jake's hand shook on his blaster. He didn't know who this girl was, but he knew he couldn't watch her die. He looked around. He had one flash grenade in his belt. Just one. He pulled it out, pressed the button, and tossed it into the air above the fire. Boom! A bright white light exploded. The tribal aliens screamed and covered their eyes. Jake jumped over the log, ran through the smoke, and grabbed the girl. She was weak and half-conscious. "It's okay, I got you," he shouted. He pulled a knife from his belt and cut the ropes. The girl fell into his arms, coughing. Her skin was burned and hot. "Hold on," Jake said, lifting her, behind him, angry. Shouts filled the air. The tribal leader, a tall alien with golden rings in his nose, pointed and roared. The others picked up spears and axes. Jake ran. He crashed through the trees, holding the girl close. Branches tore at his clothes. He could hear the aliens chasing him. "Almost there," he whispered, panting. He reached his camp, a small pod hidden under leaves. He slammed the door shut just as the first spear hit the side of the pod. Inside it was dark and safe. The girl lay on the floor, breathing hard. Her eyes opened for a moment, then closed again. Jake looked at her. Who was she? Why were they burning her? What did she do to deserve that? One thing was sure. He had just made powerful enemies, and he had no idea what he had gotten himself into. The rescue that started a war inside. The small survival pod. The air was still. The alien girl lay on the floor, her skin glowing faintly under the dim camp lights. Her body was burned, her wrists still red from the tight ropes. But she was alive. Jake moved carefully around her. He pulled out a med kit and began cleaning her wounds. Her blue skin flinched under his touch, but she didn't wake up. Outside, he could hear distant tribal drums echoing through the trees. They were searching. And they would not stop. Jake looked at the door. One spear had already struck the pod. Another would come soon, or worse. But he had no plan to run. He looked at the girl again. "Who are you?" he whispered. Suddenly, her hand grabbed his wrist, her eyes opened wide, glowing violet, full of fear. She gasped something in a language he didn't understand. She tried to sit up, panicking. Her breathing was sharp, fast. Jake held his hands up slowly. "It's okay. You're safe now," he said gently. She stared at him. Her lips moved, struggling with words. Then, softly, she spoke in broken English. They will come. Burn all. Kill. You. Too. Jake blinked. Who? The tribal aliens? She nodded slowly. Then her head dropped, too weak to stay awake. Jake stood up. He opened his satellite map. Red dots were moving, fast, towards his location. The tribes were tracking him. They were angry. He tapped into the emergency satellite network. But there was nothing, no signal. Too far from the main outpost. No help was coming. Just him and the girl. He went outside quickly and set up traps, sharp wires, noise bombs, motion detectors. His pod was small but built for defense, but as the sun started rising, a strange sight appeared in the jungle. A line of black smoke, thin and steady. It was a signal fire. Jake stared at it through his scope. The tribal aliens were not just hunting him, they were calling others. This wasn't just about one girl anymore, this was war. He rushed back into the pod. The girl was awake again, sitting weakly. He handed her water. She took it, her hands trembling. "What's your name?" he asked. She looked at him. Laurie. Laurie, he repeated softly. "I'm Jake." She said nothing, just drank. Jake sat across from her. "Why were they trying to burn you?" Laurie closed her eyes. For a moment she said nothing. Then in a whisper, she spoke. "They think I'm cursed. My mother was priestess. She protected temple. After she died, they turned on me, said I bring death, bad rain, bad crops, all my fault." Jake frowned. "So they blamed you for everything?" She nodded. "But that's not the whole truth, is it?" Jake asked. Laurie looked at him. Her eyes were deep with something she hadn't told anyone. "There is something inside me," she whispered. "I don't know what it is, but it makes machines react. It glows. Sometimes I hear voices in my head. Machines talk to me. That's why they fear me." Jake leaned forward, shocked. "Wait, you can control machines?" She looked away. "Not control, but I feel them. I touch old things. They wake up." Jake suddenly remembered the old satellite dish deep in the jungle that had started, blinking for no reason a week ago. Could she have caused that? "Laurie, I think they're scared of what you are. Maybe you're not cursed. Maybe you're the key to something they're trying to hide." She didn't answer. Her head lowered again. Then suddenly, boom! A spear exploded against the door. An alarm went off. The motion sensors triggered. "They're here," Jake said quietly. He grabbed his blaster and stood in front of her. Laurie whispered, "They will not stop. Not until I'm ashes." Jake looked at her, then outside. "Then I guess we make them stop." She woke up, screaming. Jake had barely closed the pod door when the jungle outside exploded with sound. Drums, roars, and war cries. Spears thudded into the metal. Jake turned on the outer defense shield, but he knew it wouldn't last long. Inside the pod, Laurie lay still, eyes closed. Jake crouched beside her, holding his breath. Then, her body arched. Laurie's eyes shot open, glowing bright violet. She let out a piercing scream, not of fear, but as if her body was fighting itself. She shouted in a language Jake didn't know. Her hands gripped the floor. The lights in the pod flickered. "Hey, it's okay," Jake said, reaching for her. But the pod systems began reacting. Screens lit up on their own. Holograms blinked to life. The power grid surged. "Laurie, stop, you're hurting yourself." She looked at him, shaking. "They are close, they are calling the forest. The forest listens to them." Jake stared at her. "What do you mean the forest listens?" She pointed to the floor. "This place is alive." Suddenly, the pod lights died. Everything turned dark. Outside, the chanting stopped. Jake grabbed a flashlight and scanned the walls. The power was completely gone. "Laurie, What happened? He asked. Her voice was barely a whisper. I touched something while I slept. Something inside your ship. It remembered me. Jake felt a chill. He moved closer. You did this? Laurie nodded slowly. The machines here, the old ones, they know my family, my blood. Jake looked at her burned arms. You didn't just stop the pod. You woke up something ancient. Before he could speak more, a loud click came from beneath the pod. Then, the floor split open. A hidden hatch Jake never knew about slid open, revealing stairs carved from smooth, glowing stone. Below was darkness, but it pulsed with blue light. What the hell? Jake muttered. Laurie stood weakly. It's calling. Jake helped her up. Are you sure you want to go down there? If I don't, she said, they will keep coming, and you will die because of me. Jake held his weapon and nodded. Then let's go. They stepped down the stairs. The jungle noise faded above them. The air grew cold. The walls were made of black stone covered in symbols. Laurie touched one. It glowed. Jake looked at her. You're lighting this place up, Laurie whispered. My mother told me. Our blood came from the ones who built the sky cities. But no, one believed her. As they moved deeper, they reached a wide chamber. In the center was a round platform. Around it, ancient alien machines. Floating spheres, metal vines, blinking orbs. The entire room was alive. Jake stepped back. What? Is this place? Laurie walked to the platform. She placed her hand on it. The machines lit up all at once. Holograms flickered. Stars, planets, maps, names in alien script. Then a deep, slow voice filled the room. It didn't speak English, but Jake somehow understood it in his head. Keybearer detected. Welcome, daughter of the first light. Laurie's eyes widened. That's my family's name. First Light. My mother's name was Illyria of the Light. Jake whispered. You're not cursed. You're royalty. Suddenly the floor trembled. The machines flashed red. Jake pulled Laurie back. The voice boomed again. Warning! Tribal disruption detected. Bloodline in danger. Guardians must rise. Outside, a massive roar echoed through the earth. Something ancient had awakened. Jake looked at Laurie. What did you just trigger? Laurie whispered. Not me. You. You followed the scream. You brought me here. The machines accepted you too. Jake blinked. Me? She nodded. You're not just a human, Jake. You're part of this now. Then the platform lifted, and outside the jungle began to change. The jungle remembers her. The stone platform rose slowly into the air, lifting Jake and Laurie above the glowing machines. Light swirled around them like stars spinning in slow motion. The symbols on the walls changed, moving and shifting as if they were alive. Jake held Laurie's hand tightly. She was breathing fast, her violet eyes locked on the swirling lights. This chamber, buried deep under the jungle, was not just ancient. It was waiting for her. High above, the surface shook. Vines began crawling across the ground on their own. Trees leaned in strange directions. Giant flowers opened and turned toward the tribal war drums like they were listening. The jungle was waking up. Jake pointed at the projection floating above them. It showed a map of the jungle. Then, red dots began to appear. Laurie, that's them, the tribal warriors. They're surrounding us. Laurie touched the air. The map zoomed in. A large red symbol glowed brighter than the others. That one, she whispered. That's their leader, the one who ordered them to burn me. Jake narrowed his eyes. Let me guess. He wants to stop you from unlocking this place. Laurie nodded. He fears what I am, fears what I might become. The voice from the machine returned, calm, deep, strange. Temple core accessed, last bloodline detected, guardian bond required, countdown initiated. Jake blinked. Countdown? Suddenly, Numbers began ticking down on the wall. 36 hours. What happens in 36 hours? He asked. Laurie's face turned pale. My mother once told me, when the temple wakes, it gives one chance to restore balance, or destroy everything. Jake clenched his fists. No pressure then. They stepped off the platform as it floated, down. The machines dimmed, and a door opened in the back of the chamber. Jake and Laurie followed it into a hallway lined with carvings. The carvings showed humans and aliens standing side by side, fighting strange beasts and building towers that touched the sky. Jake stopped. That's a human. Laurie stared at the wall. You were here long before now. Jake stepped back. No, that's impossible. She shook her head. Not impossible, just forgotten. Before they could say more, the ground trembled again. They rushed back up the stairway to the surface. What they saw chilled them both. The jungle was no longer green and wild. It had changed. The trees had rearranged themselves into thick walls. The flowers had grown teeth. The air smelled of ozone and fear. Glowing vines formed patterns in the dirt, warning signs in an ancient language. Jake looked around. This place, it's protecting us. Laurie nodded. The jungle remembers me. It obeys the temple. It obeys the bloodline. Suddenly, a howl rang out. From the tree line, a group of tribal hunters appeared. They wore bone masks and carried spears. But now even they looked scared. One pointed at Laurie and shouted in fear. She has awakened the earth, one screamed. The leader stepped forward, taller than the rest, his body covered in black paint. Laurie, he yelled. You bring doom. This planet cannot handle what sleeps inside you. Jake raised his weapon. Back off. But the leader laughed. Human, you are too late. You think you saved her? You've doomed yourself. He turned and walked away. When the sun rises twice, this planet will shake, the temple will break, and all of us will burn. The hunters disappeared into the jungle. Jake lowered his blaster. What did he mean? What's going to happen? Laurie stood silent, her hair blowing in the wind. He believes the temple is a curse. He doesn't want to kill me for revenge. He wants to stop something worse from waking up, Jake asked. Then are they really the bad guys? Laurie shook her head. I don't know anymore, but we can't run. Not now, not when we've come this far. Jake looked toward the dark jungle ahead. We've got 36 hours to figure it out, and if we don't... He didn't finish the sentence, because behind them, deep inside the temple, something growled. Something that hadn't moved in 1,000 years. The forest of forgotten machines. The jungle had changed, not just the trees and vines, but the feeling in the air. The ground pulsed with quiet energy. The birds were gone. Even the insects had vanished. It felt like the planet itself was holding its breath. Jake walked beside Laurie through thick, glowing mist. Their path was guided by the ancient map that had appeared back in the temple. It showed a lost location, marked only as the core gate. But getting there meant passing through an area no one had dared to enter for centuries. Locals called it the Forest of Forgotten Machines. Laurie paused, beside a massive tree. Its roots were made of metal, half covered in moss. She touched the trunk gently. This was not always a tree, she whispered. It was once a machine. Jake looked closer and saw gears and wires beneath the bark. You're telling me this whole forest was unbuilt? Laurie nodded. Long ago, before the tribes. Before the war. This forest was made by those who came before. They mixed life with machines. As they walked deeper, strange shapes appeared. Giant heads made of bronze, broken towers overgrown with alien flowers, and statues with blinking eyes. Jake looked up. This place gives me the creeps. Then a sound made him freeze. Click, click, click. It was sharp and cold, like claws on metal. He raised his blaster. From behind a rusted pillar, a shape moved. Then another. 3 creatures stepped out, metal beasts with glowing eyes and long razor legs. Their bodies looked like robotic wolves. but with long necks and sharp tails that flicked through the air. Laurie stepped in front of Jake. "Don't shoot. Let me try something." She held out her hand and whispered something in her native language. The machines paused. For a moment, Jake thought it worked. Then their eyes turned red. They charged. Jake grabbed Laurie and dove behind a stone. The beast slammed into the rock, leaving deep cuts. "Any other ideas?" Jake shouted. "I don't know why they attacked," Laurie cried. "They should have obeyed me." Jake fired his blaster. One of the metal wolves exploded, but the others leapt over the smoke. Suddenly, Laurie screamed. Her hands lit up with blue energy. The vines around them moved, wrapping around one beast's legs and pulling it down. The third lunged at her, but Jake tackled it mid-air. They rolled across the dirt. The beast snapped at him, cutting his arm. Jake grunted in pain, reached for his side, and shoved a stun mine into its chest. Boom! The creature dropped, twitching. The forest went still again. Jake fell to his knees, blood dripping from his sleeve. Laurie ran to him and held him close. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't know they would attack." Jake winced. "They were guarding something. You're not cursed, Laurie. You're the only one who can get through." She looked at his bleeding arm. "We need to reach the core gate. It's the only place that can heal this planet. And maybe you too." Jake smiled faintly. "Then lead the way, Princess." They moved forward, past the smoking metal bodies. As they walked, Laurie said softly, "I think I understand now. These they were protectors once, but without guidance they turned wild." Jake nodded. "Kind of like humans." Soon, they reached a wide canyon filled with blue fog. In the center, half covered in vines, stood a giant circular gate made of black stone and silver. It pulsed gently, like it was breathing. "The core gate," Laurie whispered. Jake stared at it. "What's on the other side?" Laurie looked at him with glowing eyes. "Truth, power, and maybe the thing they fear most." Jake stepped forward, but the ground beneath him cracked. He pulled back just in time to avoid falling into a hole. One, full of moving, sleeping machines. Laurie looked down. "Those are the last guardians." Jake stared at the gate. 30 hours remained. The clock was ticking, and what waited beyond that gate could change everything. The final march of the tribe. The gate stood like a sleeping giant in the middle of the canyon. Its round frame glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. Strange marks moved along its surface, alien letters that only Laurie could read. Jake wiped the blood from his arm as Laurie stepped forward. The jungle behind them was quiet, but too quiet. "It's listening," she whispered. Jake looked around. Or maybe watching. Laurie touched the center of the gate. Her hand lit up, glowing, the same violet as her eyes. The gate responded. It made a deep sound, like thunder underwater. Bloodline matched, core gate opening. The stone cracked, pieces slid apart. From the center of the gate, a beam of blue light shot into the sky. The fog lifted, wind rushed, outward like a breath held for 1,000 years. Jake stepped back, shielding his face. Then the gate opened, not like a door, but like space itself bending inward. On the other side was a giant underground city long forgotten. Towers covered in vines, rivers of glowing liquid, machines sleeping inside crystal shells. Jake whispered, "It's a whole world, under the planet." Laurie nodded. This was the city of the first light. My ancestors. They built this before the war, before everything was lost. They stepped through the gate. Inside, the machines came alive, quietly watching them. Some moved slowly, others blinked to life like they were dreaming. Laurie reached a tall tower, made of pure silver, and placed her hand on a circular control panel. Holograms burst into the air, showing tribal warlords, fire, broken planets, and a secret message left by her mother. "If this message is playing, my daughter has returned, and so is the danger." Jake stepped closer. "That's your mother?" Laurie nodded. Her lips trembled. The message continued. "They feared us because of what we carried. knowledge, energy, memory of the old world. That fear turned into hate. I hid you, Laurie. And if you're hearing this, they are coming to end you, just like they ended me. The image of her mother faded. Jake clenched his fists. That's why they wanted you dead. You're the last voice of the old world. Laurie turned to him, and they won't stop. Not unless I make a choice. Suddenly, alarms echoed through the city. Jake grabbed his weapon. Laurie's eyes widened. They found us. Back outside the gate, hundreds of torches lit the jungle. The tribal army had arrived. Drummers, painted warriors, giant beasts, and machines of bone and wood. At the front stood the tribal leader, holding a golden spear. He shouted into the jungle, his voice like fire. Return the cursed one, or we burn the jungle to the core. Inside the gate, machines lit up. They were waking and they were angry. Jake turned to Laurie. We need to leave, now. Laurie didn't move. She stepped onto the silver platform at the city's center. I can't leave, she said. This city was made to protect the planet, and I can activate it. Jake stared. What do you mean, activate? Laurie placed both hands on the control crystal. If I bond with the core, the machines will rise, they'll fight back. But once I start, I won't be able to stop it. I won't be the same. Jake walked closer. You're not alone. I'm here. Laurie looked at him, eyes full of fear and light. I don't want to lose myself. He placed his hand over hers. Then I'll hold on to you. Outside, the jungle roared as fire arrows lit the trees. The countdown ticked down. 20 hours left, Laurie whispered one word. Begin. The silver platform glowed. The city shook. Towers opened, releasing ancient guardians, half-organic, half-metal beasts with wings of light. The machines of the first light were rising, but the tribal army kept coming. And in the middle of it all, a girl who was once hunted now stood like a queen. The final battle had begun. She became the light of the jungle. The ground trembled beneath their feet. In the heart of the ancient core city, Jake stood beside Laurie as silver light exploded upward, sending a shockwave into the sky. The sky changed color. The air turned sharp with energy. Machines that had slept for 1,000 years opened their eyes. The guardians had awakened. Laurie stood on the glowing platform, arms stretched outward. The crystal beneath her pulsed like a living heart. Her violet eyes shined brighter than ever. Her voice was no longer soft and unsure. It was clear, calm, powerful. System, connect. I am Laurie, daughter of the first light. Begin defense protocol. The voice of the city responded, deep and ancient. Core linked. Bond confirmed. Host accepted. Jake took a step back. Laurie's body was surrounded by a ring of soft energy. Her hair floated in the air. Symbols moved across her skin like dancing tattoos. She had become the key. Outside the gate, the tribal army had arrived. Thousands of warriors moved through the trees like shadows, painted faces, wooden armor, bows, spears, bone-crafted machines. Their leader, the warlord Kurok, stood in front of them, raising his spear. Burn it all, he roared. Torches flew through the sky. Flames spread like rivers through the jungle. But the jungle fought back. The trees moved. Giant roots snapped out of the earth, slamming into the ground like living whips. Flowers opened wide and spat acid. The old forest had awakened, angry and alive, and above them the guardians soared. Silver-winged beasts flew over the army, firing beams of energy. Crystal drones formed shields around the temple. The battle had begun. Inside the core city, Laurie's body shook. Jake shouted over the rising noise. Laurie, can you stop this without destroying them? Her voice echoed not just from her mouth, but from the machines themselves. They won't stop. They fear what they don't understand. If I let go now, the machines will sleep again. They'll kill everything. Jake looked into her glowing eyes. Then show them you're not what they think. Don't be the weapon. Be the hope. Laurie closed her eyes. She whispered to the core. Suddenly, a massive guardian landed in front of the city gate. But instead of attacking, It projected a hologram of Laurie, calm, regal, and standing above them all. Her voice reached every warrior in the jungle. I am Laurie of the First Light. I was once a girl you called cursed. You tried to burn me, but I forgive you. The warriors paused. This city is not your enemy. It is our history. It holds memories of peace, not war. You were lied to. I do not bring death, I bring the truth. Then the hologram showed images of the ancient war, of the tribal leaders turning against the First Light, of knowledge being destroyed, of cities buried to hide the shame. The warriors looked at each other, confused, angry, ashamed. Then one of them dropped his spear. Another followed, but not Kurak. He shouted in rage, pushed his warriors aside, and marched toward the gate alone. She is tricking you, he screamed. She brings the end. Jake met him at the gate. The two faced off. Jake's shirt was torn, his arm still bleeding, but he stood tall. You tried to kill a child because you feared her, Jake said. She screamed for help, and I came. That's all that matters. Kurak growled. You humans always meddle, you break balance. Jake narrowed his eyes. No, we bring balance to the broken. Kurak roared and charged. Jake didn't move. Because behind him, the giant guardian descended. It stopped just inches away from Kurak, its claws humming with energy. Laurie's voice echoed from the beast. This is your last chance, warlord. Leave, in peace, or vanish with the fire you started. Kurak's knees shook. He looked around. His army had dropped their weapons. His people had turned their backs. He had lost. He dropped to the ground, hands shaking, face full of fear. And then, he fled into the jungle. The battle ended not with blood, but with silence. Laurie stepped down from the core platform. Her glow dimmed. Her feet touched the earth. Jake rushed to catch her. She collapsed into his arms. You did it, he whispered. She nodded slowly. But it changed me. I can feel them now. All of them. Every tree. Every root. Every ancient guardian. I don't think I can leave. Jake held her tighter. Then I'll stay. She looked up at him. You don't have to. I know, he said, smiling. But I want to. In the days that followed, peace returned. The jungle was alive, but no longer angry. The tribal people began helping rebuild the ancient city, now under Laurie's gentle guidance. They called her the heart of the forest. Jake built a home in the trees above the core gate. He trained young hunters. He planted gardens. He lived. And Laurie ruled, not as a queen with a crown, but as a symbol of forgiveness and unity. She would sit beneath the glowing trees, speak to machines and plants alike, and smile when Jake walked into view. One night, Jake sat beside her as glowing fireflies floated around them. He asked, Do you ever miss the stars? Laurie smiled. Sometimes, but I think, I became one. Jake chuckled. Yeah, you did. They sat in silence, listening to the hum of the jungle together.